Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a compulsive overeater. Can I start? Hello,
Yes,
everyone.
please.
I said that I hadn't been to this meeting before, but I think I have actually. I think I've been to this
Mm.
meeting a few times. So in lockdown, everything got very blurry because I was hopping on meetings everywhere because the isolation that we discussed earlier did not do me any good. It was not good to be alone in my own head for so long, even though I was still working. That lack of communication with others was difficult. So here I am. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm a compulsive overeater. I've been in OA for 17 and a half years. And I've been abstinent for 17 and a half years. I got abstinent at my first meeting. And by the grace of my higher power, whilst it's abstinence by my definition, and my food plan has changed many times over those years, I've remained abstinent in that time. So Anna kind of asked me to come and share. As I say, I had trouble finding the link because I was looking in the sent items. So my menopause brain fog is not my friend. But here I am sharing about step 7. And so when Anna put that in my mind, it made me think about all my shortcomings and how a lot of them are still around. And so I kind of honed in and focused on what shortcomings are still operational. And one that I had yesterday was people pleasing. That's something that happened when I've sold my house and the buyers came to have another look at the place. And it's an older lady that's buying it from me. And she was saying, oh, I really like how that is there. And I really like this. And I just said, well, I'll leave it for you. I'll leave it. It's fine. I didn't want to leave it. I want to take that with me. But I've just told her she can have it. Oh, God. So that people pleasing is still there. There's also the feeling of not deserving and being less than worthy for good things. So I did look at a house which was a bit over my pocket, but I could have squeezed, but I didn't want to make a bid on it because I felt that I didn't deserve it. It was too nice. That was too nice a house for me. That's punching above my weight. That's too good for me. I don't deserve that. So that was another character defect that reared its head. Another one that's still active is writing secret contracts with people without telling them, and then being really angry when they don't honor their half that they didn't know. So recently I've been with my partner. He's been struggling with his health a little bit, so I've been doing some cooking, and I've been doing a bit of laundry for him and just running around, kind of adding a few tasks to my ordinary tasks to help him out. And then yesterday I asked him to pass me something, and his face was like, oh, outraged. I was really angry because in the contract we don't have, I do things for you and you do things for me. This is the contract that I signed and you didn't see. However, you should still know what's in it and you should still do those things. So this is another character defect, which leads to resentments, of course, which I collect almost daily sometimes. But all those resentments are about that invisible contract that I make with people and anticipate that they will fulfill their half without ever having read it, seen it, or signed it. So thanks, Anna, for making me focus on all these limitations of mine. I was doing all right until I spoke to Anna. But yeah, the thing is, I remember doing step 7 and my sponsor saying it's just a prayer, really. It's just a prayer, and then a wait and see. So I remember going out every morning very diligently and doing my step 7 prayer and then listing, please take away my shortcomings, and then listing them all. And every day I would hear them. I would hear those shortcomings. And actually that really helped because it meant that when one of them arose, it was fresh in my mind that, oh, look, I'm going to do that thing. I was just about to do that thing. That really helped me. But I suppose I've got kind of complacent a little bit in recent years, and I don't list my shortcomings anymore, and I don't particularly ask them to be removed. My relationship with my higher power is, look, whether I want it to help me or not, it will. Whether I want it to sort it or not, it will. It doesn't need an invitation from me. it will just send me pain if I'm doing the wrong thing. And that'll do. That will do. So I'll tell you a bit about my history. So I came from a very dysfunctional family with a mother who was now in older years, I understand she had a personality disorder. These days, she probably would have been under psychiatric care. But in those days, no one knew these things or didn't speak about these things, or we were well under the radar because she was very good at presenting to the public that she was this person. And then at home, she was quite another. So we were brought up with this difficult conflict, this not knowing which mother we were going to have that day. And it left myself and my siblings very nervous. And one of the ways my mother acted out on her issues was to overeat or undereat. So she taught us to overeat or undereat. And that's all I knew when I arrived. I was either overeating or undereating. I had no idea that there was a third way. And I think I first acted out on compulsive eating when I was 6 or 7, something like that, perhaps even younger. And I locked myself in the toilet with a box of things that were in the house, and I ate them until I felt sick. Then after that, my mother removed the lock from the toilet door because we weren't allowed privacy. And so I found other sneakier ways of doing it and took food, started stealing food as a little child. At infant school, I started stealing food and hiding in trees and eating it. So that behavior began really early. And it seemed to be to me that I was kind of getting away with it, if you will. But my mother was obsessed with my dress size. And whilst she called me all kinds of things, which led me to believe I was an elephant, when I've looked back at school pictures, I was actually the same size as everyone else. But her intense focus was on my dress size. And then it made me intensely focus on dress size. And I first announced I was going on a diet when I was 8. And then I was on the diet merry-go-round from being 8 to being 40. During that time, my compulsive eating behaviors worsened. There were times when I was able to limit, reduce, starve, and diet. Then the spaces between the diet times and the overeating times got shorter and shorter and shorter. And the length of time I could be on a diet got shorter until in the last years, a diet could last about 2 hours. And then I was back in the overeating. My dress size grew and shrank and grew and shrank. And I sort of averaged around about 15 or 16 stones, I think. But I stopped weighing. I couldn't bear to get on the scales. Sometimes I would get on the scales if I'd been dieting for a while. So I'd go on a diet for a month and then I would get on the scales. And then it would be part of losing weight. These days I've let go of scales. I don't weigh myself. That's only me though. For some people it's a healthy thing. For me it's an obsessive thing. And the number on the scales tells me my worth for that day. So I don't do that anymore. I just go by, these clothes are getting a bit snug, or these clothes are getting a bit loose. So I came into a fellowship at the age of 40, having had the thought that death would be better. So my rock bottom came when I was 40, and in the summer of being 40, I'd been on yet another diet. This time it was Atkins, I think. And I had lost a little bit of weight, but then it was my 40th birthday, and you can't be on a diet on your 40th birthday. That's just outrageous. So it was head down into the food again, and that was November. And then just before Christmas that year, I went to visit my parents, and the conversation was the conversation that we always had. Oh God, when are you going to stop? I can't believe how big you are. Always the focus was my weight. Zero interest in anything else, just weight. And so I then plummeted back into the food, and I found myself eating something I'd cooked for my 40th birthday party, with a serving spoon, with the big ladle. I was using that to push it in. And back on the food. And then at Christmas time, as I say, I went to visit my parents and decided on that day that I would probably be a really good idea would be just to die, because then at least I'm out of the misery. And it seemed like a really, really bloody good idea. I had this kind of peace settle over me. You know what? That's something I never thought of. I could just do that. That would be so easy. So I came back to my own house in the December with a plan that I was going to leave. I had 2 children, no thought for what was going to happen to them. It just seemed like a really bloody good idea. And then I suppose my higher power, without me knowing, knocked on my door and said, that's a bit extreme, you know? Maybe there's something else. And I had an argument with it, I had a row, and said, it's all right for alcoholics and people like that, because when they're stuck in addiction, they just go to AA. There's nothing like that for me. And then it said, well, let's just check, shall we? So we looked on Google and there it was. And there was a meeting 2 weeks from the day I was looking in my local area. And I don't know what I did for that 2 weeks. I have zero recollection. But I do know that on the 11th of January, I got on a bus in the rain, in the icy cold, and it was a 1 hour and 15-minute bus ride. And then it was 2 buses home because that bus stopped running after a certain time. And I went to my first meeting, and that was the beginning of recovery. So during recovery, I got a sponsor really early, and I've had 3 sponsors now, and I think you get the sponsor for the time you're in. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you get the same sponsor because they change along with you. And then there are other times, I think, where your sponsor changes this way and you change that way, and then you find a different sponsor who can support this new way of doing things. So I've been really blessed. I've had 3 lovely sponsors, and they've really helped me through it. The first one was an excellent sponsor, because I started to say, oh, well, I've got another thing to do on a Thursday, so I'll just come to the meeting next week. And she kind of said, okay, well, if you do that, I'm not going to be able to be a sponsor. You need to go to every meeting and you need to call me every week. And I was absolutely astounded and resentful and angry and upset and hurt and embarrassed. How dare she tell me off? But that's what I did. I followed her instruction. And I got well when I stopped saying yes, but, and I started saying, okay. And that's what I did. What she told me to do, I just did it. If she'd have said, ride a horse around town without any clothes on, I'd have said, where's the horse? Let's go. And that's what I think saved me in those first years from going into a kind of half-assed, well, I go sometimes, you know, I'm doing okay. I've cut the chips out, because that would have totally been my head, totally. And I needed to be completely submerged in the program, and not be allowed to mess around with trying a bit of this and tweaking a bit of that. At first, that's what I needed. So that was great. And then I worked the steps, and I remember my sponsor, she sat very patiently and listened to my step 5 in 3 sittings, bless her, 3 whole afternoons, because I had a long list of all the people who had wronged me. A really long list. And then I had to do the bit about, oh, what have I done? Oh, okay. So I thought, well, that's okay, because that'd be shorter, but it wasn't shorter at all. So she listened to that. And then I moved on to step 6, where I recognized patterns. So I looked at my step 5 and my step 4 inventory, and I thought, I'm writing this, thank you. I'm writing this over and over and over. I'm writing people pleasing over and over. I'm writing resentment. I'm writing unrealistic expectations. I'm writing self-pity over and over. And that's how I understood what my shortcomings were. And step 7 was repeatedly and daily asking for them to be removed, which they have been for the most part. And sometimes they're not removed, but at least I know them and recognize them, which I had no clue about before. So I'm still very much a work in progress, even after all this time. And new character defects have arrived. Thank you very much. Yeah, 1 or 2 new ones. So I have to work on those as well. but mostly I think those are turning into assets a little bit. And every day it's a little bit of polishing, isn't it? A little bit of polishing the turd to try and make it into something that I can live with and face looking at in the mirror. And so that's where I am on my journey, and I'm really glad and honoured to have been asked to speak today. So thank you.